No. Alright, so guys, we are here at the Tower of David right now, looking at this beautiful medieval citadel, or fortress, military fortress essentially, with all this confusing archaeology and garden all mixed up together. So what's going on over here? So this area was essentially used as a military fortress throughout history for the past 2,000 years, beginning with the Maccabees in the 2nd century BC. What we can see from them are these rectangles over here. Okay, these rooms, which all have doors interconnecting them, were used by the Maccabees, and that's when the archaeologists dated the area to the 2nd century BCE. The wall over here, the thick wall over here, and continuing down over here, is actually the wall of the city from that period of time, from the late Second Temple period. So if you're here 2,000 years ago, in the time of the Beis Hamikdash, this is the wall of the city. Obviously, it would be higher up and much more built up. And as you can see, that's the wall of the city today, and that's the wall of the city 2,000 years ago. It has moved a certain amount, but not much. You can see over there, there's a Roman period cistern with the arch over there, covering over that cistern. That's where the Romans would use that as a water reservoir. And then above that is a higher arch, which is the fortress from the time of the early Muslim period, 8th century. Okay, and then everything you see over here, most of the walls and the surrounding area was built up in the late Middle Ages by the Mamluks and reinforced and restored by the Turks in the 1500s and 1600s. So that's what we're looking at over here. Now the area is called, of course, the Tower of David. And to your surprise, you don't see one tower here, but several towers, all of which look more or less alike, with one exception. Of course, that tower looks a little bit different because it has the minaret on it from the mosque. But they're all pretty similar. But one of them is the original Tower of David. And which one is it? They all have very similar symmetrical blocks that all look quite the same, with one exception, and let's go to that. That is right over here. If you take a look at the top, it's actually similar to the rest, but with the exception of the top, going from here downwards, you see large ashlar blocks with margins going around. Hey, those margins look very familiar to those who have visited the Western Wall, and that's because it is built by the very same person who constructed the Western Wall, and that is King Herod the Great 2,000 years ago. Same guy who built the Western Wall, same guy who built up this tower. The part on top was later on added by the Mamluks in the 14th century, and according to Josephus, this tower was at one point double its current height. When Herod built this, he didn't call it the Tower of David. He in fact called it the Tower of Fasael, because surprise, surprise, it wasn't built by King David, who lived 1,000 years before King Herod. He called it the Tower of Fasael. Fasael, named after his brother who had passed away, he named the tower in his honor. There were actually not just one tower, but 3 large towers just like this that were in place. This is the only one that remained. Okay, the other ones presumably either were destroyed in military conflicts, or was probably taken down by earthquakes. So this is the original Tower of Fasael. So how did the name change to the Tower of David? Why do we call this place the Tower of David today? Where did that name David come from? You know, just because we're Jewish doesn't mean we have to throw around the name David for no reason, right? That is because, let's remember who destroyed Jerusalem. The Romans, right? Year 70 CE, the Romans come, they smash down, they don't just destroy the temple, they actually leveled an entire city that had hundreds of thousands of people living in it. So it was really like a nuclear bomb, you know, destroying this city of Jerusalem. Now what happens 100 years later is that the Romans are going to rebuild the city as a pagan city and call it Aelia Capitolina. Everything is going to have a very Roman style, okay? But there's going to be a few buildings that remain from the pre-Roman Jerusalem. That's going to be, one of those buildings is going to be this building right in front of me.
Why do they care so much about the city, the Romans? Because they were against the whole Christian kind of thing.
No, they destroyed the city, and then they figured, hey, it's a city. Let's rebuild it. Let's turn it into a Roman metropolis.
And they destroyed because it's Jewish.
They destroyed it in the context of the Roman-Jewish War in the 1st century. Between 66 and 73, the Jews were attempting to create a Jewish independent state in this country, to rebel from Roman rule, like the Maccabees did. Unfortunately, unlike the Maccabees, they did not succeed. They failed. And as a result, the last of the rebels took hold in Jerusalem, and the Romans fought a 5-month urban warfare with the rebels to suppress them, and in the process, the city was destroyed. And also, as retribution for the rebellion, the Romans destroyed, and leveled the whole city, including the temple. But what happens later on, after the Romans rebuild the city in the 4th century, they convert to a new religion called Christianity, and they read a best-selling book called the Bible, and they open up the Bible to what we call Shir Shirim, or Song of Songs, and they find over there a reference to something called the Tower of David. Well, they know all the buildings that they build in the city, and they see that there's a few buildings that remain from an older period, and they look at this tower, which is the only pre-Roman structure here, and they say, hey, that looks pretty Davidic. That must be the Tower of David.
Get out of here.
Ever since then, from the 4th century, all the rulers who have controlled Jerusalem have continuously referred to the area as the Tower of David, even though King David didn't build up this area. However, we're not too far from King David himself. In fact, if you look at that clock tower over there, just a kilometer down the road, that's right next to the burial place, the tomb of King David. And just a few hundred meters to the east of there, we'll find the city of David, the actual area that King David did build up in Jerusalem. So King David didn't build up this Tower of David, but we're not far from what he did build up.
Cool.
Yeah.